Warzone has its mysteries with it, and especially with Verdansk 84, players are still finding more out about the map, and more mysteries are being uncovered. But the interesting part is that there's a handful of different mysteries from the original Verdansk that seemingly died with that crossover to Verdansk 84, that never in the entire year and a couple of months of change never got any explanation as to why they were there or what their purpose was. Today, I want to take a little bit of a dive to examine those mysteries and let you know what you may have missed in relation to these items and what they could have meant. So as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below of these mysteries. Do you think you have any explanation for them? Is there anything that you think is a mystery that we didn't really talk about? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know down below. As well, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Warzone and anything COD related. We'll keep the with absolutely everything. We're on that road to 500,000 subscribers, so if you guys would like to join the community, I'd love to have you. And finally, check out my friends over at Gamer Advantage. Their new Horizon frames drop soon, so if you're interested in learning more, click the link in the description below. But that said, let's jump right into it. Now, again, with Verdansk 1984 now here for all players, this means the stuff that we'll discuss here may actually not have any answers ever. And one of the big ones that's eluded me here since the very beginning is one that I thought we'd see some sort of answer or explanation to, given that the other pieces to the puzzle were used with the items that were introduced at the same time, but that being the laptops spread across the world within Verdansk. We saw these in, say, ATC towers like airport and military base. I think there was one somewhere in Boneyard, if I remember correctly, but these laptops were seemingly introduced to be a part of the Bunker 11 Easter egg, in which that took you all across the world of Verdansk, in which you had to hunt down activation phones, then in a sequential order hit various phones around the map depending on an ever-changing code that was new every single game, so that you could eventually open up Bunker 11 and gain access to the secrets in there, the Muddrobber blueprint as a reward, and also see that nuke that was introduced for the first time within Warzone that would play a much larger scale into not only the modern warfare side of the storyline, but also potentially to that nuke event that introduced Verdansk 84 as kind of foreshadowing. But the laptops were introduced at the same time as the key cards for the access of other bunkers, the phones, and the activation here with that one. But just like the phones being there from the very launch of Warzone, these just never had any purpose associated to them. And as time progressed, as we saw the introduction of this Easter egg, and a lot of time still between when that was introduced and the launch and changeover to Verdansk 84, it made sense that maybe we'd see that at some point, but the laptops seemingly died with Verdansk and never had any real associated reasoning behind it, which is just strange. Another mystery, if you will, came a little bit later, but still kind of followed that storyline that progressed with the bunkers within Warzone. And this one more so to the fact that once you got into the bunkers, you may have noticed that there is a secondary bunker behind those initial bunker doors, something even further down that goes to the next level of Verdansk. And that was something that never got explained, even with a lot of these having interactable keypads in which you could input different codes. A lot of people thought this would be for that nuke event in which you had to take shelter, you had to find the activation key for that bunker to allow it to be opened, then you'd rush in there as if you kind of ran to the stadium in the Know Your History reveal event, and then once you got in there, the cutscene would play and you'd emerge then into Verdansk 84. That was the rumor for the longest time here, and it was something that made a lot of sense, but as you saw with that nuke event that we've talked about here on the channel, that isn't what happened. Instead, it was basically like the zombies overran you, and if you're in Verdansk, well, you're kind of SOL. You were just cannon fodder at that point, where the nuke wiped you out, and then you played from the perspective of those in Rebirth Island, launching the nuke, and then also then coming back to it, flashing into Verdansk 84. But we thought for the longest time there'd be some sort of reasoning for that additional bunker to be introduced, but it never actually happened. If it was something that it was just the walled off area and it was a texture of a door in the bunker, that'd be one thing, but to give it a whole activation code and something that you could input in an identical fashion to other areas we were able to open up with codes around the Warzone map, it just made this one an incredibly strange one that was a mystery that was never explained. Now, if I were to be honest with you, I think that this one has the potential to be explored a little further, even in Verdansk 84, as opposed to things like, say, the laptops and the other ones we'll talk about here in this video, because, well, the bunkers still persist. The bunkers are still around within Verdansk 84, and right now aren't open, but have been hinted at that they will be opening at some point, and it seems like they're kind of playing this bunkers opening up game once again here through year 2 of Warzone. Now, whether or not it yields a cooler result or maybe something that is a little bit lackluster, we have no idea, but if there is that same case of the secondary bunker doors, this year we may actually get some answers, but for right now, I still classify it as one of those mysteries that never got answered and thus died with the original Verdansk. Another mystery is one that was introduced within Season 5. The big key marquee items out of Season 5 was the opening of Stadium. We ended up seeing Shadow Company introduced into the fold of the narrative and storyline, so there was a lot of cool stuff that was introduced with this season, but at the same time, there was also some things that went under the radar that weren't actually noticed by a lot of people and seemingly were subsequently removed shortly after their introduction and the Season 5 launch. Those being throwable propane tanks, it seemed like, in which they were small, you could pick them up, but they came in two different variations, red and green. One being flammable, meaning that if you threw it and you shot it, it would explode into a fireball, and it would have the sort of Molotov effect where wherever that substance stuck to, it would burn for a short period of time. The green ones, that was like your gas grenades, where if you shot that, it activated and blew up in a sort of gassy mist. Now, this was something that for, again, that brief period of time that it was introduced was actually pretty cool because you could kind of bait and switch people. You could end up putting them in roads and blowing up cars by actually triggering them as the players drove past. But again, they weren't around for very long, a couple of days max if I recall correctly. And it was something that never had any real attention brought to it, both the introduction and the removal. This feature was added in under the radar. Very few people knew about it, but for those that did, they never got an explanation as to why it was removed. Many speculated this would be part of an event coming up in the future, potentially with some sort of reveal event for the Know Your History event that would come later at the end of that month, but we never saw anything come of it, and since then, we've actually never seen these reintroduced into Warzone. So what happened with those? I guess we'll never know. The final mystery we'll talk about here today is one that had a somewhat explanation to it, but again, similarly to the throwable propane tanks, wasn't around for very long at all. That being the detection contract in which you could end up picking up a new tablet-looking device off the ground, in which it looked very much so like a heartbeat sensor, but it was actually a Geiger counter. This would lead you to a radioactive cache, which, again, if my memory serves me correctly, ended up rewarding you with an RCXD, something that kind of played into the promotion for the Know Your History event. But again, this was only around for a couple of days and wasn't anything that was really ever publicly stated, and thus, once it was removed, was once again never publicly stated, with no reasoning given behind any of it. Personally, I thought this would have been a really cool piece to add to the whole nuke event, especially given that we saw those corruption zones where you could turn that then into radiation. You could have the Geiger counter of sorts act as something, obviously on the TAC map being marked. You wouldn't necessarily need something to tell you we're getting closer to a radiation zone, but it'd be a cool piece to add to the puzzle no less. But instead, it was just introduced for a couple of days, and that was that. But that said, that is 4 mysteries here that really died with original Verdansk, and once 1984 crossed over and we got Verdansk 84, there seems to be no resolution here for this. So just want to take some time today and kind of run down some things that I thought were pretty interesting. Maybe you do as well, but let me know your thoughts down below. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, would you like to see some of these mysteries expanded upon here in the future? Somehow, if they do persist into Verdansk 84 and 40 years into the past, whatever it is, let me know your thoughts. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing running all things Warzone and anything COD related. We'll keep the day with all of it. So if you guys are interested in joining the community, I'd love to have you. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get content on YouTube. Practice on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.